Pigeons and Planes.
So guys, Jinx here with Pigeons and Planes, and we have a very special guest in the studio, Khalid.
What's up, bro?
How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. It's midday somewhere.
Right.
So, dude, you're from El-Paso, Texas.
Yeah.
But you moved around as a military kid?
Yeah. Just growing up, my mom was in the military. That's who I stayed with for most of my life. We lived in places like Germany. I lived in Germany for 6 years. I lived in northern New York for 4 years, and then towards my end of junior year, I moved to El Paso, Texas. Ever since then, all these places that I've ever lived in, I don't really feel like I had a home until I moved to El Paso. Like, artistically, I started making a lot more music. I started actually recording the music. That time period of moving from New York to El Paso just knocked me into this creative drive, and I started writing. Actually wrote and finished my first song in complete, Saved. Moving from New York to El Paso, it was very hard for me. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I lost a lot of my friends from New York. I didn't look like everyone else. I didn't talk like everyone else. I was just the weird art kid, weird hair, all of that. But like I said, just knocking that into creative drive, just writing out my feelings was probably one of the only things that kind of helped me. It was sad for me, but what was best was just the ability to just express myself through song and through music. I didn't even really know that Saved was gonna be something. I didn't know that it was gonna be out at that time throughout my community, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna release it. I'm gonna see what it's gonna do. It was a voice memo, a personal voice memo. I released my own personal voice memo, and it got 20,000 plays in 2 days in El Paso. Everything went super well, but then the most popular kid in my school, he's like, you know what, that song sucks. That song's terrible. He made a video of him saying that the song sucked.
Have you heard from that kid in any capacity since?
Yeah, I've heard from him. It's funny because he actually got kicked out of a music festival in El Paso, and I'm walking into the music festival and I have hella bands on me. Like, I have all these like wrist bracelets and bands, and he goes over to my friend. He's like, I got kicked out. Take one out of my pocket. I'm like, yo, there you go.
Yeah.
Go back in. That was very mature for me. I feel like I grew a lot from that. It's like sometimes your worst enemies can kind of do the best for you. All that motivation that they give you, all that negativity that they throw at you, kind of throw it right back with positivity. Like,
in that same paper, that same high school paper, you mentioned that, and I asked you, I guess, where you saw yourself. You said that you imagined that your future wouldn't be something that you envisioned for yourself the year prior. So I guess you imagine that things would be drastically different.
Oh yeah, completely.
At that time, what did you envision for yourself, like when you were in high school or in New York coming up?
Going through high school was always teachers and motivational speakers coming to the school and telling us, don't turn your hobby into a job, turn your job into a hobby. And I thought that was BS. I'm like, you're telling me to not go to my full potential, but to settle for what I know that I can achieve as an individual. And that was just stupid to me. It's like, you're telling me to not chase my goals.
Yeah.
But then at that time, I kind of listened to that. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a music teacher. I'm gonna major in vocal performance and music education. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna teach kids. I'm gonna have the time of my life as long as it's involved with music. Nowadays, the music education throughout America is depreciating a lot. It's falling rapidly, and it's kind of upsetting, but I still get to do the same thing. I still get to teach lessons and give all of that through recording music, which was my dream. I wouldn't have expected being able to stand in a booth and speak all of my vulnerability into a mic and put it out, and someone listens to it and they hit me up and they're like, that song really changed a lot for me.
You got an album coming out March 3rd.
March 3rd, yes.
Most people tend to like flirt the idea of the title, and then a date is always kind of out there, but you threw a date and there isn't a title yet, or is there one?
It's gonna be called American Teen.
American Teen.
Yeah, I really feel like the title is just a representation of who I am as an individual. I'm an 18-year-old American teen Being military, being black, just all of that is just really what America is about right now. It should be about diversity. There's so many different teenagers, and it kind of stretches past that. But for me, I feel like that's just a representation of who I am. It can hit the masses. You have German teens, you have Canadian teens, you have African teens, you have Asian teens, but at the same time, everybody is going through the same type of stuff.
Yeah.
We're all going through the same problems. We're all going through heartbreak. We're all going through happiness. It's really just a compilation of all the stories that I have, and I'm kind of exporting it throughout all of my influences and all of that, just piling it up together and just giving it to the masses.
Has anyone imparted any advice on you or anything to look out for, or just like words of encouragement?
Kalani told me to bring a lot of underwear on my tour.
Okay.
She told me that. But in a serious way to say it, I guess they taught me a lot about movement, about the way that I should move, and just to always be true to yourself and genuine. They're all genuine. All those people are very genuine people, and you can hear that through the music that they produce.
Yeah, for sure. With the people that you mentioned movement. You know, I look at Bryson, Black, SZA to an extent. They've either created or kept up with this mystique that's around them, and there's like a sense of anonymity. But when we look at you, you interact with your fans very heavily on social media. You know, you're not like hiding behind a plan or shadows, you know, on Instagram. Is that a conscious decision, or you just like to avoid that path? Because that seems to be the path that a lot of artists lean into today.
I feel like it's just all about me really being super genuine in myself. So I really appreciate everyone who shows me love, and I make sure that I reach out to them because those are the people who are going to support me in the long run. At the same time, all throughout my message, it's about vulnerability, and I can't really truly be vulnerable without showing my face to everybody, showing the real me. So I always connect with everybody. I always try to learn more about my fans because it makes it way more easier for the creative process when I'm writing the songs, because I'm not necessarily just writing them for myself, I'm writing them for the listeners.
You kind of evoke this like somewhat of an old soul, whether it's in your lyrics and presence, but you make contemporary music.
Yeah.
Where does that inspiration come from, if that's even true? And B, how do you funnel that kind of like wise aesthetic through a sound that feels very now?
I feel like being military allowed me to mature a lot as an individual because I was so used to moving from place to place. I was very used to broken relationships. How you would build a relationship for a couple of years with another individual, and then you find out you have to move. You move, and sometimes the relationship lasts, and sometimes it doesn't. At the same time, you continue to move, and so that relationship that you had at the first station, it could be gone by the third, it could be gone by the fourth or the second. I feel like that kind of has to deal with all the music that I create. Some of it is about broken relationships and all that, but it's also about moving on and still being positive in a sense, because I spent so much time worrying about all these broken friendships and relationships that I had. It just brought myself negativity. I was sad all the time, but the moment that I got over it and realized, you know what, all these relationships come and go. Some may be here, some may not. I found a way to interpret that through the music that I create. And it kind of sounds like I've been through a lot. But it's just because of just moving. As much as I've moved, as many people as I've met, you hear all these different stories and all of that. It just really becomes a part of you.
It's a lot of life in a short window.
Yeah, most definitely.